Imagine a person named James, a man in his mid-30s living in a bustling city, working as a data analyst at a major tech company. His life is filled with stress, back-to-back meetings, tight deadlines, and constant pressure to prove himself. Every day, after returning to his small apartment, he collapses onto the couch, grabs his phone, and starts scrolling through social media. Initially, he intends to spend just a few minutes, but minutes turn into hours. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. He finds himself awake until 2 a.m. Eyes red, body exhausted. In the morning, he wakes up tired, gulps down his coffee, and rushes to work, only to return in the evening to the same routine. James knows this habit is ruining his sleep, reducing his productivity, and affecting his mental health, but he can't stop. Why? Because breaking habits is no easy task. Today, we'll dive deep into why it's so hard to break habits and how people like James can break this cycle, with practical steps and insights drawn from psychology and real-world experiences. Habits are behaviors that become automatic through consistent repetition. When James opens his phone every night, his brain creates neural pathways that make this behavior easier and smoother over time. These pathways are like highways in your mind. The more you use them, the stronger and faster they become. This system is incredibly useful because it saves the brain energy. Instead of making a conscious decision each time, the behavior becomes automatic, like driving a car or brushing your teeth. But the problem arises when bad habits, like social media addiction or smoking, become part of these highways. Breaking them means reshaping these pathways, which requires effort and time. Scientifically, habits form in a part of the brain called the basal ganglia, which is responsible for automatic behaviors. When a habit is repeated, this part of the brain becomes more efficient at triggering the behavior without conscious thought. This explains why James finds himself opening his phone without even realizing he's done it. It's not a lack of willpower but the design of his brain, which seeks to maintain routine. James's phone habit isn't just a random behavior. It's part of a cycle known as the habit loop, which consists of 3 components: the cue, the behavior, and the reward. For James, the cue is the feeling of stress and exhaustion after a long workday. This feeling drives him to the behavior, opening his phone and scrolling through social media. Then comes the third part, the reward, which is a temporary sense of relief, entertainment, or escape from the day's pressures. This cycle, cue, behavior, reward, is what makes habits deeply ingrained in our lives. But cues aren't always obvious. Sometimes they're emotional, like feeling bored or lonely. Other times, they're environmental, like seeing the phone on the table. For James, the couch he sits on every night has become a powerful cue. Just sitting on it makes him feel the urge to grab his phone. This connection between environment and behavior makes breaking a habit more complex, as it requires changing not just the behavior but also the surrounding factors. So why does James struggle to stop, even though he knows this habit is harming him? There are several reasons rooted in psychology and biology. First, bad habits often provide immediate rewards. Watching a funny video on his phone gives James a quick burst of happiness, while the benefits of stopping phone use, like better sleep or increased productivity, take time to manifest. The human brain is wired to prefer instant rewards, making it a significant challenge to resist bad habits. Second, the brain loves stability. When you try to change a habit, you're not just resisting the behavior but also the brain system that strives to maintain the status quo. This explains why James feels frustrated or anxious when he tries to cut down on phone time. It's like trying to redirect a flowing river, an enormous effort. Third, many habits are tied to specific emotions. For James, the phone is his way of coping with stress. Stopping its use means he needs to find new ways to manage those emotions, which is no small feat. Finally, social media is designed to be addictive. Notifications, short videos, and social interactions trigger the release of dopamine in the brain, a chemical linked to feelings of pleasure. This chemical addiction makes stopping phone use far harder than a mere conscious decision. Breaking bad habits isn't impossible, but it requires a thoughtful strategy, patience, and self-understanding. Big changes start with small steps. James doesn't need to stop using his phone entirely in one day. Instead, he can set a small goal like reducing phone time by 10 minutes each night for a week. This goal is simple enough to be achievable yet paves the way for bigger changes. Small goals build confidence and reduce feelings of overwhelm. To break the habit, James needs to understand what triggers it. Is it stress? Boredom? Sitting on the couch? He can keep a journal for a week, noting when and why he uses his phone. Once he identifies the cues, he can work on changing them. For example, if stress is the trigger, he can try relaxation techniques like deep breathing or meditation. Stopping a habit without replacing it leaves a void that can pull you back to the old behavior. Instead of scrolling on his phone, James can try activities that meet the same need. If he uses the phone to unwind, he can read a book, listen to calming music, or practice yoga. If he's seeking entertainment, he can watch a short movie or play a board game with a friend. The environment plays a significant role in reinforcing habits. For James, the couch has become linked to phone use. He can disrupt this association by changing his setting. For instance, he can sit in a different chair or leave his phone in another room while relaxing. He can also turn off notifications for social media apps to reduce external triggers. Since James struggles with phone addiction, he can use technology to his advantage. Apps like Forest or Freedom allow him to set times to block social media. He can also activate Do Not Disturb mode on his phone after 9 p.m. to minimize temptations. Tracking progress boosts motivation. James can use an app to monitor his phone usage or create a simple chart to log the minutes he's reduced each day. When he achieves a goal, like spending a week with less phone time, he can reward himself with something he enjoys, like buying a new book, eating a favorite meal, or spending a day in nature. Rewards reinforce positive behavior and make the process enjoyable. Change is easier with support. James can share his goal with a friend or family member or join an online community focused on self-improvement. Having someone to encourage or hold him accountable can make a big difference. For example, he can challenge a friend to reduce phone time together, making the process more fun. Change isn't a straight line. James might revert to his old habit on some days, especially after a tough workday. That's perfectly normal. The key is not to see a setback as the end of the journey. Instead, he can analyze what happened. What pushed him back to the phone? Was it stress? Boredom? He can use this insight to avoid the same situation in the future. Changing habits takes time. Some studies suggest it can take 21 to 66 days to form a new habit, but this varies from person to person. James needs to be kind to himself and remember that progress, however slow, is a success. Feeling guilty or blaming himself won't help. It might even increase stress and push him back to the old habit. Sometimes, focusing on the bigger purpose behind the change helps maintain motivation. For James, his goal might be improving his mental health, making more time for hobbies, or being more present with friends and family. Reminding himself of this purpose can give him an extra push on tough days. To see how this works, let's imagine James decides to take action. In the first week, he sets a small goal: reduce phone time by 15 minutes each night. He uses an app to track his time and leaves his phone in another room after 9 p.m. Instead of sitting on the couch, he starts reading a sci-fi novel he loves. The first few days are tough. He feels anxious and tempted to grab the phone, but he persists. By the end of the week, he notices he's sleeping better and feels more energized in the morning. He rewards himself with a fancy coffee from his favorite cafe. In the second week, James faces a setback. After a stressful workday, he reverts to scrolling for 2 hours. Instead of feeling defeated, he reflects on what happened and realizes stress was the trigger. He decides to try deep breathing exercises the next time he feels overwhelmed. Over time, James replaces his old habit with new behaviors: reading, evening walks, and even attending a weekly yoga class. After a month, he notices significant improvements in his mood and productivity and starts dedicating time to learning a new skill he's been putting off for years. Beyond the core steps, there are additional tips that can help James or anyone trying to break a bad habit. Reading books like The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg or Atomic Habits by James Clear can provide valuable insights into how habits work and how to change them. Understanding the science behind habits makes the process less daunting. Another technique is habit stacking, which involves linking a new habit to an existing one. For example, if James drinks coffee every morning, he can pair it with a new habit, like writing down 3 things he's grateful for. Visualizing success can also be motivating. James can imagine himself waking up refreshed, spending evenings on fulfilling activities, and achieving his goals. This mental image strengthens his drive and makes the goal feel closer. Since stress is a common trigger for bad habits, Learning healthy ways to manage it can make a big difference. Meditation, exercise, or talking to a friend can be effective alternatives. Celebrating small wins is crucial. Even a single day of reduced phone time is worth acknowledging. James can congratulate himself for these milestones, as this positivity fuels motivation and makes the journey enjoyable. In the end, James's story is one many of us can relate to. We all have habits we want to change, whether it's excessive phone use, smoking, unhealthy eating, or procrastination. The challenge isn't just knowing a habit is bad, but taking the steps to change it. By understanding how habits work, identifying triggers, and following small, thoughtful steps, anyone, including James, can achieve change. If you feel stuck in a bad habit, remember, change is possible, but it takes time, patience, and self-compassion. Start with a small step today, maybe writing down your triggers, setting a simple goal, or sharing your journey with a friend. So what habit do you want to break? And what's the first step you'll take? Share with us in the comments, and let's start this journey together.